On January 20th, a lot of Texans woke up to something out of the ordinary: snow. And it wasn't just a little snow, it was a record breaking snowfall for our area. We get up pretty early, and Ziggy was super excited to get out to play in it. By the time the sun rose and the land was visible, the snowfall was intense, at least for this area. It kept snowing and snowing and snowing, but that didn't stop the birds. The cardinals and the chickadees hang out here pretty much year round, while the chipping sparrows usually hang out during like fall and winter. Cardinals can sometimes be a bit territorial of the feeder, but there was this one juvenile male who was a little less willing to share space than the others, but that gave me an opportunity to catch some pretty cool shots of the cardinals who were waiting to return to the feeders. We even got a visit from a robin. That's pretty cool. I was curious about the deer though. The only one that I saw all day was through the window, and it was just beyond the tree line. Not long after I went out to explore this non-ordinary winter reality, a few deer did mosey through, but I only saw them through the camera. Eventually, I made my way over to the studio, and it was so surreal to look out and see snowfall while working in the greenhouse. I'll talk more about those in another video, and we'll get to the garden here in a bit. The pull to go out exploring was so strong. From the ground, things didn't look all that different, so I was curious about what it looked like from above. Last January, we maybe had like an inch of snow, but mostly the water froze. This time, we got a lot more snow, a little over 3 inches, and I was so surprised to see nearly everything under a blanket of white. Just like, wow, like, look at that. I was so curious as to why it seemed like everybody else around us got more snow, though. I kind of figured that it was because they have cattle, so their pastures are grazed down, and here the pastures are grown out and worked for hay, so I don't know. As much as I enjoy the snow, I am not a fan of the cold. And I was pretty eager to see the garden in better light. I did check it after first light, and everything was just, buried in snow. All of the mustard, chickweed, and spinach were completely buried. I shook the snow off the hoop houses, but wanted to wait until the snow melted before peeking inside, and moved on to the rest of the garden. It looked pretty stressed. Part of me was kicking myself for not covering as much as I could, but I also trusted the resiliency of these plants, and if they don't make it, then, it wasn't meant to be. And they'll feed the land as compost. Old Man Zig was built for this kind of weather. Despite his arthritis and congestion flaring up a bit, his refusal to come back inside told me that he was really enjoying himself. When he finally did come in, we made some butternut squash soup with some apple cinnamon slices that I dehydrated the day before, and it was delicious. But Ziggy's sneezing was getting a lot worse, and we were really grateful that the vet was able to see him whenever the snow melted. The next morning was gorgeous. At 17 degrees, everything was covered in frost crystals, and there was still a bit of snow in the shadier areas. The pasture went from white and shades of red to this almost pewter taupe that reminded me of ashes. And, the land has gone through some extremes the last few days. Winter is the time for rest, reflection, refinement, but it's also a time of letting go, of death and decomposing, so there's plenty of nourishment to fuel the rebirth of spring. The last few days were so gloomy and overcast, and I was feeling an immense gratitude for the sunshine. It got up to the 40s and more snow was melting. Unfortunately, with the warmer weather came the smell of decay and root rot. The Brussels sprouts were perking up really nicely. The peas in the back, I don't think they made it though. The collards were looking pretty exhausted also, and a bit iffy, but I bet they bounced back. It was really interesting to see how much more quickly the snow melted in the bed with the wood chips. Maybe the wood heats up quicker or something. And those poor beets, man, some of them just kind of turned to sludge, and I'm a bit bummed, but we'll harvest what we can when we can. On the upside though, I was very relieved to see that the chickweed and the mustard greens had survived and were looking pretty well. Of course, the green onions were doing well also, but only one of the two spinach was exposed in the snow, so we'll have to wait to see if that other one makes it. Walking around, I was met with mostly familiarity again. It was definitely that perfect tension between disappointment and gratitude. It was a bummer to watch the snow melt, but I am really grateful to have had the experience, and I'm looking forward to returning to the warmer days of a Texas winter. That's it for this one, though. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope everyone out there is safe and warm as we inch closer to these revitalizing days of spring. Until then, I will catch you next time.